Hello, everyone. Kevin Carrillo here, and welcome to another episode of the Cannabinoid Connect podcast. My guest today is Rob Woodbyrne, CEO of Regrow.
Good. The first one was really good. I thought watch the guy from listen to one from the guy from Colombia. It's like really good information. Good show, man.
Yeah, from the CEO from Chiron. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Rob. And so, hey, by the way, I hit record. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Figure we could just roll right into this, man. So,
Okay.
but tell me a little bit about you. So, where are you located?
Yeah. So I'm down in San Diego, California, which is not by accident. I moved down here to go to college in the 90s. And once I lived in San Diego, I'm like, why would I want to live anywhere else but here? So this is my home now.
I've said this before on the podcast. I am due for a trip to San Diego. I've never been, and I just hear it's one of the most incredible cities, man. I mean, it's bike friendly. There's the beach, a beautiful drive like to Malibu, I guess, right? That famous highway. I need to get
Okay. I have I'm pretty well connected in Southern California. So when you want to get that trip going, wait till COVID's over, wait till everything opens up a bit more. And man, I got we have got like John, one of our developers. He has this sailing yacht that he uses to go around the world. So we just go out on the weekends. We go sail around San Diego Bay. We go like spear fishing, lobster fishing. Ride surfboards. I live 4 blocks from the Pacific Ocean, so I use my bike more than I use my vehicles.
Whoa. And hey, spearfishing, I'm sold there. I mean, sailing is one thing, but like spearfishing, I've always wanted to do that, man. I've never.
Well, I'll make a deal with you. If you come out here and surf and spearfish in the Pacific, I want to go spearfish in the Gulf because Texas has some amazing fishing out there.
There we do it, and we'll become spearfishing buddies, man. There you go.
Hey, no, like I'm serious. Like I make this offer to people. It's just like, dude, if you're gonna come to San Diego, come and experience it right. It's just like this is an open invitation for sure.
I appreciate that, and I'm gonna take you up on it. My wife and I have been wanting to go. We have some good friends out there too, so we know people there also. So it'll be good to do that, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I got some spare surfboards sitting around. So if you guys want to head down to the beach and try to learn how to surf, I'll show you the ropes.
All those things are on my bucket list. So
There you go.
Cool. So tell me, I see those, for those listening, I see guitars by Rob. Are you a musician or?
Well, I have in my mind, I am definitely a musician. When you hear me play, you would probably say I'm not a musician. So we have my co-founder, Chris Flores. He's actually a very talented musician. He's in a bunch of local bands. He's a drummer. Him and and my kids play instruments too. I try to play them, but I got to stick to writing software because I can it's like Mary Had a Little Lamb is about as good as I can get.
I can totally relate. I am super musically illiterate. I mean, I know good music and I enjoy good music, but to actually create it, it's a lost cause. So,
oh, well, yes. Like you could ask Chris. Like I've told him for 10 years, it's like if I found a genie in the lamp and I only had one wish, it would be to be a musician. Like that's the only thing. I'd be like, I want to play guitar like Eddie Van Halen or Slash, and I want to sing like Axl Rose. It's like that's my dream.
Right. Hey, well, we all have dreams, man. Maybe one day,
if this cannabis thing goes well, maybe I could give it a shot.
There you go. That'll be in your post retired life. There you go.
Yeah.
So hey, well, for those listening, I'm talking with Rob. Is it Woodbyrne?
Nah, it's simple. It's Woodbyrne.
Woodbyrne. Rob Woodbyrne, he's the CEO of Regrow. It's a seed-to-sell supply chain software company designed for cannabis executives, managers, and operation personnel at all levels of the supply chain. So, Rob, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you on and to learn more about Regrow today, and to also talk about, how companies can be more efficient in their operations by using data insights to make more informed decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just nailed it, right? It's just like as we all grow in this budding industry that's taking off, it's amazing. But one of the things that we have to do is we have to take advantage of the modern tools that we have available to us, right? It's just like, you're a host, you do a podcast, you have some cool equipment that makes it so you sound great. And I think that cannabis operators have to look at it the same way. It's like there's a lot of junk out there and there's a lot of things out there you can invest in. But at the end of the day, you have to help find the technologies and the tools and the way of tracking things that's going to help make your operation live through the life cycle of companies that come and go.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Tools are so important. Not, I mean, in kind of every facet of life, but business especially. But then you think about the cannabis industry with how many moving parts there are, right? And ever evolving regulations and legislations that are being pushed through and passed on a daily or even weekly basis and whatnot. And so having these tools readily available that can help you with these processes and make things more streamlined are super important. So, in your opinion, Rob, what are some kind of basic steps that companies in the cannabis space can take to become more efficient in their operations?
I would say it's a good question. And, everybody, every organization is going to be a little bit different, and there's going to be different people's skill sets that are going to be better at some things and worse at other things. So I think the most important thing is just to have visibility, right? You have to be able to know what's going on in the organization. You have to be able to, you know, we build software, we build it for personas, right? We don't build software for industries, we build software for people. And so when we're deciding how we're going to help a cannabis company navigate through from propagation all the way through to retail and navigate that whole supply chain with all those steps along the way, what we have to do is we have to say, okay, well, what persona are we building this for? And so what we really do is it's a practical approach. It's like we say, okay, we know there's going to be executives, and here's what the executive wants to see, right? An executive is trying to make sure that at the bottom line is an executive is trying to make sure we all have jobs next year, right? If we all have jobs at this company, woohoo, we made it. Let's keep going, right? We're all good. We're not going to have to go look for jobs. So the executives need to look at the money. They have to look at the revenue. They have to look at what they're spending their money on, what their expectations are, and they have to be able to know how to navigate the company through that. So what we need to do is be able to, as a strategic business partner, which anybody who's going to be holding the data that helps you create your revenue, that's got to be a strategic business partner, right? And so what we need to do is create views into their environment that are something that makes sense to them that they could use and access easily, and it just works. And then we have to look at a couple other personas too, because then we have not only our executives that we have to get this information up to, we have our managers, and these are the people that are being asked to manage teams or teams of people to go and do tasks around the organization, and they have to make sure that they can understand what their workforce management is, how we're doing, if we're operating efficiently. And then where the rubber meets the road is the actual end users, right? If I have buckers and trimmers and I got pest management individuals and I have head growers that are going around and trying to keep everybody working. Some of these people are wearing gloves. Some of these people have on masks. Some of these people, are only allowed in certain areas. What we need to do is find, like, I hate to use him as an example because everybody does, but it really goes back to Steve Jobs type stuff, right? We need to make this so that a 3-year-old can pick up this tablet and use it without knowing how to read instructions because they can't read.
Yeah.
So why can't we use that kind of cool technology in the workplace for adults, right? It's just like we just have to change our mindset and we have to attack technology from a user perspective.
Yeah. I mean, user experience is so important, and like you said before, visibility, right? Having visibility into the end goal so that the personas, as you mentioned, the executives, the mid-level, and then the buckers and the trimmers, that they all are on the same page and they're working toward the same goal within their purview, right? And I think this happens a lot in corporate America, where a lot of these different teams internally, they kind of work in a vacuum, right? Some of these larger corporations are so big that the marketing team's the marketing team, the PR team's the PR team, you got sales over here, and there's not much cross collaboration within those departments, right? uh,
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a huge opportunity for the cannabis industry to not fall into that same kind of trap, you know? So what you're talking about in terms of this visibility and the user experience is super important, but also the insights, right? So let's talk a little bit about the data insights that y'all provide at Regrow, and how they can help, or in general, how data insights can help these companies or these executives make more informed decisions.
Yeah, and so I think that it comes with a couple things, right? Because there's also different aspects to it. You mentioned it before. There's this seed to sale compliance issue that growers have to use, right? If they're going to be legal, they're going to have to adapt and become seed to sale compliant. So, that's one tool that has to be done. We also have environmentals. So if you're a grower, you have probably using Argus or Priva or some other environmental systems so that you know how much sunlight you're getting or how much light you're getting, how much water you're with the pH balances. And so you have these. We also have CRM tools, and a lot of the people that are doing branding, well, they're trying to understand, if I'm selling these vapes over these things, even maybe it's not as big of a profit margin, but it's a better revenue margin at the end of the day, right? So you have all these different types of tools that are solving very specific problems for the cannabis industry. And a lot of them have been tailored from old tools from other industries, right? And so what you have is you're like, okay, well, we could apply this to our current business. We know we could sell out on Ease or Nug or one of those, sites like those guys up in LA did. And so we have all these different tools that we have to get syncing together. Now, as an owner operator, what you have to be able to do is navigate and know, like, okay, we have to start where this whole thing starts, right? If we're going to capture data, we have to start with the clones and the seeds, right? Because if we're not capturing information from the clones and the seeds and the mother groups, it's really hard to follow that plant's life cycle all the way through to retail. So that way, what we could do is understand our recipes, and we can understand how we get better over time, right? So if I'm going to maximize my canopy space in a greenhouse, what I have to do is understand how I'm doing over time by tracking these things and creating the performance analytics. So yeah, we could go through and track them. And I know people have spreadsheets full of data, but the problem is you have to be able to trust the data. And so it has to be real time. It has to be able to be interacted with in a way that somebody could say, right now, I'm worried because this batch of Blue Dream is going to slow down this batch getting over to the flower room, right? That's something that if we can make that known to somebody at a high level, even if they're sitting in a different part of the world, they could call into that grow house. And one of the other things you mentioned is like the personas, right? It's not necessarily executives, mid-level, and then end users. It's almost more like, what are you doing? Are you managing? Are you guiding? Are you managing? Or are you doing, right? And you might wear all three hats. But what we need to do is make sure that the executives, all the way down to the buckers and the trimmers, are all on the same page, trying to do the same thing. I think right now, and I've listened to some of your podcasts, and I've heard other people talk about this issue where you have the people that know how to grow marijuana, right? And I know one of the co-founders from Candescence, a guy named Randall Patton, and I was talking to him, and he's like, one of the things is we have to be able to that the plant's the CEO, right? We can't grow. You can't always grow the way the executives want you to do because it's all timed. But sometimes if you have plants that haven't matured yet and haven't budded yet, we can't take that to market. So we're in this. I hear it all the time, and it really sounds like it's the us against them. It's these new executives that are coming in from food and beverage and alcohol against these growers that know how to grow this ancient plant, right? And they're so passionate about it. I think what we could do is by creating that single pane of glass, creating that open view into the organization. We have to, I think one of the things that companies can do, whether they're using technology or not, is say, we need to get the whole organization understanding where we're going and how we're getting there. So that way we have an understanding of, is it the premium flower that's important to the organization, or is it the meeting the deadline so we all have jobs next year? And then when everybody understands that, I think it becomes, it's not that the CEO necessarily has to go down and talk to all the buckers, but if they all understand where we're going, I think it could help the companies be more efficient.
I think that's a great way to put it, right? I mean, basically what you're saying is that these new executives that are entering from different industries, say food and beverage and others, they add value, right? And obviously in some capacity, leadership, management, networking, people that they know, just all these different things. And then you've got the growers who have the legacy growers who have been growing for years, right? Even during kind of the illicit black market times.
Absolutely. And they're good at it.
They're good at it. They're the best at it, right?
Yeah.
Add tons of value also. So the key here is, how do we bring these two together so that expectations are managed, right?
You
And
nailed it. It's expectations. If we understand it, like, when do people get upset? It's when their expectations aren't met. If every time you have to open up a ticket to get your computer fixed and they never solve it in time and you always have to make it a P1 so somebody will finally fix your computer, you're just frustrated. You're like, I'm going to call the guy that I know, or I'm going to go to this person because I know that this isn't going to work and I don't need it to be an emergency. So we have to set better expectations. And that's one of the things that technology could do. And getting insight can do is it could provide better expectations for the business from the top to the bottom, because now you could say, hey, I want you to get this task done and I want you to get it done by this time. Great. Now we can let the system manage that, because now if you have a system that's doing the checking for you, as a manager or as a director, I could even go, you know what, give me a little tickle when this thing's 75% to breaching what the expectation is, right? Because then if we catch it before it becomes a P1 or before it breaches, then what we could do is we could solve that problem. The customer's still happy and they'll use the process again. One of the things that I'm hearing over and over in this industry is just the battle for process, right? The SOPs, the how are we gonna weigh? How are we gonna do this? I don't want to do it this way. We've always done it that way. Well, we need these compliance. Well, I don't care about what that compliance person says. If everybody understands why we're doing it and going like, hey, this is the way that we all, enjoy our lives and work better, and everybody has visibility, it helps the organization just run more efficiently. Because like you said, people aren't in the dark. They know why we're doing things the way we are.
yeah, and I would imagine, I don't have much experience at all, or if any, in this area. But when it comes to, like, growing and the different things that you're talking about, like, those expectations can be managed through data insights, right? So
Mhm.
one example could be, like, if an executive has a hard timeline on a certain crop that they're wanting to yield and sell, right, at a certain, in a certain quarter, if the deadline's tight, that's when you can kind of look to these insights, such as different strains or genetics that, or autoflower, things that maybe may produce and you can cultivate sooner than other strains that you're already using, right? So that could be one example from, like, a cultivator using data insights.
No, that's absolutely true. In fact, that goes right along with the conversation we were just having earlier this morning, and that's and it goes to, okay, well, if we're going to grow, um, such and such strain, and I know that, okay, so I'm getting excited for ski season. I live by Mammoth Mountain. It's like 8 hours up the road. I love going up there and stuff. And so, just skied or just snowed last week. So, if I want to go and go up there and go skiing, I forgot what I was talking about. Totally got thrown off the track.
Insights, data insights. I gave the example of the executive wanting that hard deadline, and then a cultivator using insights to know what kind of strains or autoflower to use to meet that deadline.
Yeah, no. It was a conversation we were having this morning. I totally just lost it, but it had to do with it. Sorry, you have to go into, yeah. I can't remember what I was going to say.
So let's talk. Okay, so how during this pandemic have data insights helped some of these cannabis companies? Obviously we saw demand rise for CBD and other products because people were locked in. But what kind of insights did they use to pivot or make better business decisions?
Well, okay, a good example of a company that didn't do that is Aurora, right? Where they grew all that premium flower without understanding that the market was demanding the trim and the less expensive stuff. So they spent months and months and months and all this revenue or all this money growing premium flower, and then they weren't able to sell it because people weren't buying the premium flower. So that's where data insights could have been much more valuable for them, right? And so going back to, I kind of remember what I was talking about now. It's like, okay, if we know that in November when people start skiing, that Gorilla Glue #4 sells really well in California in that ski season, right? we need to know, probably around June or in March that we need to get this batch going. And so that we need to grow it so that we can have it ready and cultivated and ready to go to sale for ski season, right? So if we can get that data from our CRM to say, okay, now what we want to do is we want to have a planning tool, which is something like what Regrow would be, is like, hey, we have a 24-month or a 36-month rolling planned executable plan that we have in our software. We all know what's coming up and when it's coming up. Well, if Gorilla Glue #4 is going to sell really well in California around Thanksgiving, we want to take those Salinas farms or those farms over there, and we want to, in June, we want to have a bunch of Gorilla Glue #4 started. So that way we could see that it will be ready by this date, and we know that our yields are giving us, we could be 80% accurate that we have these yields. So now what the executives are doing is taking it all the way down from, we know, our recipe for growing Gorilla Glue #4 is what our growers and our managers want it to be. Great. We want to start that as executives so it's done by this date. Well, so right now in the systems we have, there's no way of tracking all that data through without just kind of taking a shot and writing it on a whiteboard saying we expect it to be ready at this time. What if we were able to provide all that information to them at an executive level for all their grows everywhere, so they could just look at a dashboard and go, this is going to be ready here. I could estimate this is going to be ready here. And then what you do is when you have that data, now you can take it to the next level and go like, well, shit, if I know I'm going to have this much Gorilla Glue ready for November and everybody's going to want to sell it to all these guys that are going snowboarding or going up to the mountains, well, why don't I just, I know I could sell 80% of my yield because I know I'm going to get 80%. I could pre-sell, I could forecast and pre-sell that. So that way, not only do my customers know that, hey, they're going to have plenty of time when this is stocked up, and we gave them the metrics to say, people like this during this time of year, and here's why we should buy it now. We could get all that stuff pre-sold. And then what you're doing is you're just helping that company become more efficient. They're not worried about where they're going to sell it. They're actually, there's becomes a future, even a futures market for it, right? You could go out and say like, hey, who wants to buy this many pounds of Gorilla Glue #4? Well, if we sell out and we still have enough time to make another run, perhaps we could find room in another greenhouse so we could start making another run of it. But we don't know until we get those metrics, and then we could have somebody look at them and analyze them. And the only way we could do that is by capturing as it goes through the process.
And that's what I wanted to ask you. So yeah, what you just explained is when you can really start helping these companies get dialed in and become more efficient by forecasting and seeing these things based off of trends and data that you're providing them.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
But so my question is, how long does it, on average, does it take to capture that performance tracking data, and how many use cases are you talking about? I know you said that it's kind of an aggregated process over time. You're doing this and you're finding these insights and you're kind of uh, you know getting scoped in. So how long does that usually take?
Well, it unfortunately takes you to get through more than one cycle, right? Because if you get through one cycle and you do one recipe and you have one batch go through, you only have one thing to compare it to. You need to have a second one go through of the same thing, so you could say, what were the deltas and what were the differences? What were my environmentals? How did, it was ready at this time of the year. How did it sell? It was in this part of the greenhouse. How come the flowering didn't? Oh, because we have it back by this wall that gets too hot. And so what we need to be able to do is understand that. So that way, when we're trying to maximize those yields, we could go around and say, hey, if we fix the ventilation in that back corner of that greenhouse, it will cost us this amount, but over a course of a year, we'll get this much more yields because we could see from past performance that is really impacting us. So that's one way we could do it, is we could just use those. So you have to take the time to get the data in the system. Now, if you have so here's where the rub comes, right? And this is like when you're looking at software technologies, it really becomes about the data model, right? So it's just like, the problem is bad data in gives you bad data out. So, I could say if you have a bunch of historic data, we could throw that into the tool, and then we could start helping you track and see what your deltas were, even from historical data that we took from spreadsheets or CSV files or Google Docs or something. We could do that and start giving you some insight. But one of the things we have to remember is, were we tracking all this important stuff? Because if we weren't tracking it, well, then we have to start tracking it so that we can report on it.
Mm-hmm.
And now taking it to the next level, and as a business, you're like, okay, so yeah, we want to I want to make these growers and these farmers, I want them to be stoked and feel like they're not managing technologies anymore. They're managing growing cannabis, which is what they want to do. Let nerds like me and our team manage software, right? That's what we like to do. We're nerds. So, but at the end of the day, we want to go in there and provide these metrics. And over time, let's say that we get 5 years into this and we've had companies giving us this running data for 5 years at a time. We can actually take that data and scrub out the information and provide a useful tool back to the community to say, like, hey, if you're growing in this region, it's like there's some things you should know, right? Here's what we're seeing. We're seeing some trends, and it's not necessarily proprietary information from one grower to another. It's more of, it's almost like environmental information going out to the community that, like, when I talk about the New York Stock Exchange, they don't they don't sell and trade stocks anymore. They are an information outlet. They provide information on what's going on in the market. And so that's something that Regrow would have the ability to do too. If we can get this consolidation of data, big data, that then we could provide out to the market, we could be like, hey, here's how this stuff grows over here. Here's how long, if you're growing um I don't know, lemon haze. If you're growing lemon haze, we've seen over time, over 5 years, from hundreds of companies growing it, that it has a flowering, if you flower it for 28 days, that's going to, or I mean, for 48 days or 60 days, that's going to be the right amount of time, because we've seen so many people do it so many different ways. We're seeing that this is the way that yields you the best um, um, yield, gives you the
Yeah.
best yield from it.
Yeah. No, I could see how that would be a tremendous value add. Just, giving that kind of larger view of not just the climate and growing conditions and best practices in California, but applying that, say, on the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
New Jersey, New York, even Arizona, right? They have a dry desert climate. So that would be super valuable as the country kind of matures, with more legalization of states.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, is there any other type of insights or data that Regrow is maybe focused on, say, like in the future, maybe when it comes to maybe more broad, like industry trends, financial projections in terms of how much the industry will generate in revenue? Like, I mean, I know that that's kind of really forward thinking, but do y'all have plans for maybe something like that in the future?
I think so. Probably not necessarily the high level industry term or trends. I mean, we have to be a little bit aware of that because we're a startup and we're going to have to go to VC. So I have to put all these big $1 billion numbers on slides so investors go, yeah, that looks like it's going to be, fun. But at the end of the day, we're a company that's like, we've had success in software. I mean, I was, a very early employee at the fastest growing software company of all time, right? It's in the, we founded a company in 2006, 2007. It's in the S&P 500 now. So we've had a lot of success with business doing this at the large area. I also created another company where we created management systems for hospitals. So when you want to talk about a place that you have to be super compliant in, but also had a lot of issues, we're able to solve those problems for those people too. So that when we look at this, like, I'm focused on growers. Like, I'm passionate about cannabis. It's, I'm a big proponent of the wounded warriors, as well as mental health issues. And, we have stories, it's antidotes and stuff, but, Kylie, our director of operations, her son, he had epileptic seizures for most of his childhood, until finally a doctor said, we are going to try CBD. And they tried CBD, and he hasn't had one for 4 years. He's able to go drive cars. He's able to spend the night at his friends' houses. He's off to college now. And that just wasn't a place for them before. So for me, I'm passionate. I want to be connected with cannabis, and that's my goal. And the best way to do that is make these growers and these manufacturers, these people that are making these baked goods and these candies and stuff, have them look at us and go like, man, we like what you're doing and you're helping us. That's what will give me value, right? It's like, I could write software, but this is the one time that we've got to pick the industry that we wanted to go into, and cannabis is the place that inspired us.
Shit, that's really beautiful the way you put it. I can totally relate, man. I feel the same way. Like, it's just timing is everything, and um, this industry is on the verge of exploding. And it's just an exciting time to be in. I mean, just like you talked about with your coworker's son and his his seizures, right? And
Yeah,
how CBD helped. And I've had guests on that, have MS. I have an uncle that has MS and takes CBD. I mean, it does help,
it
and
really does.
it's important that we spread that information and inform and educate our listeners about these benefits, because for too long, peer review studies and research, it's just been kind of put on the back burner, due to the federal regulations that have been put in place. But you
Yeah.
know
Well, I mean, I'm inspired by, I think about it from, maybe we're not focusing on like we're going to be the big picture, but in anything you do, especially as a business owner, it's not just me. I'm not going out here and saying I want to work in cannabis. This is great. Well, I have people that work for us, and these people have taken a chance on us being able to do something meaningful and being able to give them a job and stuff, right? So it becomes, our job to make sure that this industry works in the right direction. And like even sitting here talking to you, it's like you have to take a step back and go like, in 5 or 10 or 15 years, yep, I'm going to be that guy that was doing this back then and setting the trend. We're the trailblazers. When I see the Candescent guys on your podcast, or I hear Graham from Glass House, it's like what they're talking about, the way that they're talking about doing business, but doing it in a way that's helping the environment and helping other people. It's like heard one guy talking about, he's like, yeah, when my kids were young, they acted like I was doing a 9 to 5. Now they don't mind saying my dad works in cannabis, because that stigma is going away and people are realizing like this isn't something that leads us to shooting up crack in alleyways. This is a drug that helps my grandma's arthritis, that helps my uncle that was in the war deal with his PTSD, that help, it just does all these great things that we haven't even figured it all out yet. So it's, for me, that's where my passion is. It's like I'm never going to grow. I'm never going to be a farmer like Graham. He's done that his whole life. He's good at it. But I am from Ventura. I'm from where he is, so he's very cool, right? But it's just like if I want, I couldn't be as good of a farmer as him, but I can write technology. I could write technology to help him grow better.
Yeah, hey, you're firing me up when you say that, man. I get really excited because I mean, in a lot of ways, you're absolutely right. I mean, first off, Graham from Glass House Farms is a machine. So I'm glad that you called him out. Shout out to Graham, and he was a great
For
guest
sure,
to
yeah.
have on. I mean, he's sitting in his truck, like doing the interview, doing the podcast, the episode with me, and he's just like he's been doing this for years. He's just being kind enough to bring me and the listeners on for the ride, and kind of share his insights and whatnot.
It
Because
totally is. We went out and as a startup, I mean, you probably hadn't. I guarantee you hadn't heard of Regrow before you booked us, right? So we're young. We're coming out. We're entering this space as a lot of other companies are. But probably about 8 months ago, 9 months ago, a year ago, I was out at Glass House and Graham was there, and I was just talking with some of his staff with a salesperson, and he's like, and I already knew who he was. I knew he was the big shot. He's the Sonos guy, but he came up. He's on Can of Cribs and all that. But he came up and he was just like he shook my hand. He's like, hey, he was very engaging, and it's just like I want to work in an industry where kind of the guys who are the guys that other people are looking up to, going, that guy's doing it right, or girl, especially like like with the women in Sensi that goes on in LA and stuff. It's just like, there's just some amazing people in this. And what I love about even your approach and the other people that I hear on your show is everybody's like, this is a rising tide. We don't have to battle each other like these other industries. There's plenty of space for us all to do our own things and do what we enjoy doing and do it with this attitude of helping.
yeah, I totally get that feeling also, man. Everybody is just so willing to help and collaborate, and there's no sense of ego yet. I don't, I've worked in different industries. I've worked in information technology. I've worked in the airline space, telecom, right? And those industries are so matured because they've been around for so long, and there's these huge kind of 1 to 2 or 3 big players anymore, right? Where
Yeah.
there's the ego that comes in, with the job and some of the people that you meet with and interact with. And so I don't get that sense right now. Like you said before, we're the rising tide right now, and everybody's just trying to work together to figure this out because there is no government help right?
No,
There's
government is making it hard as hell.
yeah, it's actually it's not even help. It's deterrence. It's
Yes, exactly.
and so that is such a great point, man. And we are fortunate, you know, to be able to do that. I mean, I just started this podcast. We talked before we started recording. I started this in April, and you know, I'm fortunate enough to have we're going on what, this is episode 75 today.
Yeah, you're a beast, man. I was like, I had to get up and go for a run this morning, just knowing how many of these things you've done, and like since COVID hit.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I have had help. You know, there have been PR agencies that have really helped and kind of recommended, you know, various clients that they have, and then you know, just the people that I reach out to. They're just open to talk because people are dying for this information. You know, they're yearning for it. They want to learn. They want to be fed different information than what they've been told for the past, what, 70 years or so, right?
Oh, well, and it's just like, so, like I am not somebody who's used cannabis my whole life. I was a rugby player in college, and even post college I played at pretty high levels for a long time, and so I didn't really ingest things that I thought would be bad for my lungs and stuff. Or and so it just, you know, I smoked out a couple times in college on on surf trips, but honestly, the reaction I had was probably more of a like, you know, I was drooling and my mouth was hanging open, and I'm like, this isn't fun. So I just didn't bother with it, right? But then, you know, you go through life and you have some success in business, and then you know you know you're just doing things, and I ended up having to look into, I don't know if you saw that film on the NFL players with the concussion syndromes and stuff. Well,
Yeah.
I played contact sports for probably 35 years of my life, right, at pretty high levels. And so, you know, I started having some issues, and you know, luckily there's, especially here in San Diego, because of junior sale, there's a lot of research around here on this particular issue. And the good news is it's not something that is permanent. I mean, it's not good, but basically what happens is scar tissue gets between neurotransmitters in your brain, and then when those neurotransmitters try to go and get to that other spot, they go shooting off. But what the research has found is that your brain knows how to fix itself, amazingly enough. But things like cannabis and CBD like help bring down anxiety and help just kind of normalize things. And you know, I talked to you about before about, you know, mental health just being, you know, it's something that the best way I like to explain it is when you break your arm or your leg, you wear a cast so people don't hit you or touch you or shake your hand because they can see you're in a cast. They're like, he's hurt.
Hmm.
When somebody's injured their brain, it's like nobody can see it. So you could go like, hey, I'm having this problem. And people are like, okay, good, recognize it. 20 minutes later, they're like, okay, are you over it yet? Let's go do this. You know, and so you have to be able to, you know, just the more we can help people with anxiety and depression and all these things that affect them. I mean, with this plant that has been around for millennium, yeah, it's just like it's just a cool spot to be in.
Hmm.
I'm kind of drifting off, but you can bring me back in.
Oh, I'm glad that you shared that, man, because I too can relate. I mean, I had a similar background as you. You know, all growing up since I was 5 years old, I wrestled. I come from a big wrestling family in New Mexico. And
Cool.
you know, that's a contact sport. Many times where I got hit my head or I was slammed, you know, and I didn't really touch cannabis. I didn't, you know, I tried it like once or twice in high school. um my best friend, in fact, he lives in Dallas here now, and he made a bet with me. I was a two-time state champion, and the first time I won, he said, if you win state, you're gonna spark up a joint with me to celebrate. And so I did. I won, and then like 2 weeks later, we're at a party, and he reminds me. He goes, "Hey, you ready?" And I was so scared, man. I didn't, you know, but
Wait, was it Michael Phelps?
was it no?
I saw the video of that.
No, but it was a great experience. I mean, that night I remember driving home and just kind of looking at the road and the lines and whatnot. And I was like, I just felt kind of content, you know, and relaxed, and didn't really touch it after that because I wrestled in college. Uh,
Yeah.
but after I retired in college, man, that was the time when I was like, I went to a head shop. I bought a really nice glass pipe, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take this on. I'm gonna do this, and I did it more to just relax myself. You know, being in such an aggressive sport like wrestling, you know, you're always on, you're always ready.
Yeah.
You know, you're tense, and I know that you could probably relate with rugby. You know, same thing.
Well, I used to wrestle too. I just wasn't a good wrestler. So yeah, I never made it to state.
But wrestling. Then you know how.
Yeah, it's hard, very tough. But and you have this like because of the way we were brought up, we're like, oh, why would I touch marijuana? That's for that's for the druggies. I'm an athlete.
Right.
You know, I think back to people like Michael Phelps or like Ricky Williams, and like you look at Ricky Williams and like that guy was a superstar. He had anxiety problems. Let the guy smoke some weed and then get rushing titles, right? Why does he have to leave the league because he smoked some weed?
I know. And I was kind of like that. I had that mentality in high school, like I'm an athlete, blah, blah. And it's so funny how you just change as you grow. You learn and you get more educated. And I mean, because there was times where, at parties, guys would like hide it for like when I'd walk up, they
Yes. Oh, I did. Yeah, for me too, for sure.
they'd think that I was going to judge them or something. And so, but it's all about education, and experiencing it for yourself. If it's not for you, then I get it. If it makes you paranoid and stuff, then, maybe CBD is better for you when it comes to
Absolutely.
anti-inflammation and not having those psychoactive effects. But we got to give the plant a chance, right? And there's got to be better, alternatives than what we've got right now, which is just basically pain management, right? Like opioids and things that are physically addicting drugs, that can be harmful in the long run, and ultimately kill you, right?
Well, as a rugby player, if you've met many of them, we tend to be known for our alcohol consumption. And back when I was younger, I used to consume a lot more alcohol, and and I didn't really look at that as a problem because it was normal and everybody in the society was doing it. But I wasn't doing marijuana, so I was okay, right? Well, I was really, I don't know how many years ago. It had to be about probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I was just watching YouTube and I was watching one of Joe Rogan's like comedy specials.
Yeah.
He did this skit and he's like, who do you want, a drunk dad? And he's like yelling and telling the kid to go to bed. Or he's like, or do you want a stone dad? He's like, come give daddy a hug. Do you want to order a pizza? It's just like, and I just had like this thing where I'm like, Joe Rogan just changed my mind about the way I feel about cannabis. And I'm like, I need to stop drinking less. And I've said that before, and I've stopped drinking in my past to show that I wasn't an alcoholic. But what happened is I started smoking cannabis and I just naturally started drinking less because it was probably solving the issues of I'm a hyped up guy, right? I'm kind of raw. And so it's just like it helps me relax and kind of calm down. And it's something that I like. I'm a better person now because I made these changes once I found out more information about the truth.
Right. And sometimes it takes like something very ridiculous to put it in a joke like that, where you're like, oh yeah, because there's truth to that, right? I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so true. And yeah, I mean, I'm the same way, man. It calms me. It makes me think about, thinking before I was speaking. I'm more self-aware, so
Absolutely.
the benefits definitely outweigh the cons, and there's not many cons. I mean, you can smoke too much and pass out, and but I've never really been like lazy when I do it. I always have been self-motivated and stuff. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I feel the same way. It's just like I know, now that I'm working in this industry and I'm working around people that do consume cannabis without hiding it, right? We're at a point now where people are like, I'm high. Hey, I'm taking an edible. Hey, I'm smoking out. And it's just like, I don't see any loss of performance from the people who I find smoking out. Now, give somebody 3 beers and you can't get them to get anything done, but
mm,
people can smoke all day. And I'm like, who cares? Smoke. You're doing great and you're
that's
calm,
yeah.
right?
Well, that's going to be interesting also, like as we start to see more states, become adult use. It's going to be interesting how the private companies that operate in those states handle their employment onboarding, right? Because federally, THC is illegal, right? Cannabis is illegal. But if you're in a state where it is legal, are they not going to hire you in that job? So
Well, what I'm seeing is that what's happening is the company's HR departments, like let's say that you're a New Jersey based company and you're hiring somebody in California. What basically happens is they're not allowed to ask and they don't drug test. And so it's almost, there are certain sets of customers, like if you work with like I just know this because coming from big global 2000 industry. It's like if you're working with somebody who's like DOD or associated with maybe PCI for banking or something, then they'll have you, or insurance or something, they'll have you say nobody who works with my account is allowed, it has to be drug tested. So then they will have to drug test those individuals that they put on that account. But for in general, like they can't ask their California employees to do drug testing because it's legal here. So it becomes more of, I think the way that big companies look at it is more like, how do I, it's the same thing we're trying to solve for cannabis companies. How do I increase my revenue, and how do I avoid, or how do I lessen my risk? And this is just another part of business that's lessening your risk. It's like, I have to lessen my risk in California by not asking people if they're smoking cannabis, because I could get in trouble if I ask them that.
Right. Or they're going to lose like half of their employee base.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Because I think that these companies would be very surprised about how many people do consume cannabis.
Yeah. Well, especially when you have edibles and you have vapes and everything else, it's like I prefer smoking flower just because I just like the whole process of rolling a joint and smoking it. But people, I don't have, I could function without it. I know people are like, it's hard for me to get through the day if I can't just, chill a little bit. And so for them, they have those options of doing it. And, it always frustrates me when I see, I consider that bureaucracy. You're managing something just to say you're managing it. It's like, if the person's working, let them work. Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, they got to stay busy. I get, they
Yeah.
probably have their own performance reviews where they have to check those boxes, and, it's just a vicious cycle.
It is. It is. But like one of the good things about being a SaaS and cloud-based company is that, this whole new normal that we're going through, it's kind of the way we already work. So, I mean, yeah, we were impacted by COVID personally, but not necessarily professionally, right? It's just
Mhm.
like we were able to, it didn't interrupt our days. It didn't interrupt the way we worked. It didn't interact. The only thing that we can't do is we can't go on site. We can't, fly up to Canada and go and sit at a grow house and ask them what they're doing. But, everybody's learning to work around that.
Right, right. Yeah. And I mean, over time, this is going to pass. I know that we're gearing up for more lockdowns and stuff now, but I'm hopeful that this will all be a thing of the past.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you look at it, and yes, we hope it ends, and yes, we hope people get better, and we don't have to face, our family members dying and our community members dying. But I look at somebody like you and where this change has put you, and just the 70 some people who I've now been exposed to and listened to because of what you're doing. It's just like, change isn't always bad, right? And this is a good microcosm of what we're going to go through in the cannabis industry. Some people aren't going to make it. Some people are going to make it, and we're going to be successful, and it's going to be a funnel, right? Because that's the way the world works. So how do you get yourself to the top of that funnel, right? How do you take the people that you want to work with, and the companies you want to work with, and us take the growers we want to work with, and the partners we want to work with, and how do we help all get on that rising tide, right? Let's get on this tide, and let's see where this new age is going to take us, and let's not be afraid to change, right? Let's get on our horse and go for it. And well, if we run into a wall or we find something that doesn't work right, well, then we'll just switch directions. We'll do it a little bit different, but keep moving forward.
Yeah. Again, man, you're firing me up, Rob. You must have been the captain of your rugby team, and you gave the speeches before you guys went to battle. Is that right? Am I right?
That is absolutely not right.
Well, you should have been.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I was the guy that was talking the whole game, and I actually became a coach. Then I coached some high school teams after that because I was just always talking the whole time.
No, but I really mean it, man. The way you put it's beautiful, and you're right. It's the natural progression of life is there's going to be people that make it. There's going to be some that don't. But I think what's important and crucial right now is that we all work together and we collaborate and we share and we, because it's only going to make us better,
Yeah. And
ultimately.
everybody in this industry right now has this like open mindset. And I know that I don't like I get frustrated when I hear it's those old corporate guys coming in to stuff us down. And then it's like, oh, we're the regrowers, we know how to grow this stuff, this is this by the plant. It's like this isn't an us against them. It's like you said at the beginning, we're bringing in people with skills and these ways of doing things. So like, we saw what happened in Canada when being vertically integrated. We talked about Glasshouse and Candescent. We're talking about vertically integrated companies. You know how hard it would be to decide to just jump into a new industry and become a grower? Or what about jump into a new industry and become a baker, a
It's
manufacturer?
it's impossible. It's impossible.
And we're going to ask, and because of cannabis, because this is so exciting, we have people that are saying, I'm not only going to become a farmer, I'm going to become a processor, I'm going to become a distributor, I'm going to become a retailer, and I'm going to become a manufacturer. And then and we're just going to all do it right now with the five of us. It's like, this is cool stuff. But then when everything goes wrong, because you're like, maybe we should get more focused, that's when these other guys come in and go like, hey, I'm one of these guys. I'm like, hey, I've done this before for the biggest companies in the world. I worked with Nike, with Google, with Facebook, with Johnson and Johnson, with Deutsche Bank. I've traveled the world solving problems for very big organizations. I'm like, I love cannabis. I know how to do this. Hey, let's not recreate the wheel. And that's what we got to remember. These people aren't coming in to push us all down. They're helping us not make mistakes so we don't face some of the problems that, when Canada went public, what those companies faced, right? Because it wasn't that those people didn't know how to grow cannabis. It's like they didn't know how to work in a white market where everybody has their hand in your pocket, including all the government agencies.
Right. It's almost like that saying, you can be good at a lot of things, but you can only be great at one, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that's just kind of a human fact, right? I mean, if you look at, let's take sports, for example, right? I mean, how many professional athletes can you name that played multiple or just two different professional sports, right? There's a very small number. I mean,
Less than five, maybe, that I could think of. And why don't they do it? It's not because the athletes are as good, it's because it's too hard to be that focused.
too hard because, yeah, if you want to be great at something, you have to obsess. You have to work hard at that goal, and you got to work at it every day, and you got to improve and get better and practice and get feedback, and that consumes a lot of your time. How are you going to do that for two things or five things, right? What you need to do is you need to collaborate with the right partners, like you said. You need to bring on the right team, and establish that trust so that you can delegate, and you can put the onus on those people who are highly skilled in those areas, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's just like, if, from my experience, this isn't a religious statement. It's just like, there's a guy in a book named Jesus that had his thoughts on leadership, and it was a servant style of leadership, right? And it's, regardless if you believe he's a real guy or not, it's like, if you go back and read what he said about leadership, it's about doing for others, right? If you're, the way that you lead is by washing the feet of those around you, right? It's just like, yeah, if when we start going to trade shows again, hopefully I see you at MJ BizCon or something. It's like, be around on the floor on the last day when everybody's breaking down their booths, and see how many executives you see helping their team break down their booths. Because I'll tell you right now, that's a company I think has good culture, and I bet you those people like working there, right? And it's like, it's nothing against the ones where the executives walk away and they let the marketing team break down the booth, but go and check out the ones where the executives there are helping them out, because I bet you that that's a cool collaborative environment and people like working there.
Yep. And that's even to see that, right, in this industry is encouraging, right? Because again, there's other industries that have become so conglomerate and so saturated that that's unheard of, right? That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, we're very lucky, man. And Rob, I've really enjoyed talking with you today, man. Is there anything else that we should cover before we sign off?
Oh, no, just tell people to call Regrow and come and let us come in and see if we can help them solve some of their issues, right? We're completely transparent. We've never asked anybody to buy our stuff before they've seen it working with their data in it. So the nice thing about being SaaS is it's just, it's on the internet. I could come in, I could configure it for you and show you. So, hey, if you're struggling with things like visibility or compliance or even workforce management, or even if you want to automate your SOPs, give us a call. We'll come in, we'll show you what we got. And if it's interesting, we'll continue talking.
Awesome. And where can they find you? What about websites and social media channels and stuff?
Yeah, so you can find us on the web at regrow.io. And for LinkedIn, regrow.io, look me up, connect with me, whatever. We have Instagram, which is regrow.io. Twitter's different. Twitter is regrow underbar io. And then on Facebook, it's regrow.io as well. And we're also in sunny Southern California. So when you're coming from Texas, out to California to San Diego, give me a call. We'll take you surfing.
Definitely, absolutely, man. I'm gonna get your contact information after we get off here.
All
So,
right.
Rob, man, really, again, I really enjoyed it. Thanks again for sharing information about Regrow and how data-driven insights can help empower these companies in the cannabis industry, man. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Keep up the good work.
Cool. And we'll talk to you all. Thanks for listening. Okay.
Okay. Bye. Thanks, Kevin.